Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Cloverdale Planning Commission to order. We have a call of order, which is good. You're good? You're all on? Okay. Yes. Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Cox, could you lead us, please?
Place the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Alternate Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Acey.
Here.
Vice Chair Hobart.
Here.
Commissioner Sanders.
Here.
Commissioner Waggy.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Spengler. Currently absent. And Chair Shanahan.
Here. Thank you. Agenda review, changes, deletions.
No changes to the agenda, Chair.
Thank you. Declaration conflicts of interest. Seeing none. Okay, I just want to welcome everybody back. It's nice to be back up here.
Yes.
And doing our thing. So, welcome all. You new guys, this is your first time, so enjoy the seats. They're fun. They go up and down. Okay, we open up the public comment under this item. Citizens may speak on matters within the Planning Commission jurisdiction which are not on the agenda. The Planning Commission is prohibited under public meeting law from taking actions on matters that are not on the agenda. However, the Commission may take citizens' input under advisement, direct staff to place the matter for future agenda or for discussion and or possible action, or refer matters to staff for follow-up. Members of the public may comment on matters not on agenda. Please limit comment to 3 minutes. Do we have any Zoom hands?
We have no hands raised in
Okay.
Zoom, Chair.
Okay, we have nobody in-house, so we will close public comment and bring it to consent calendar. And we have a minutes review, excuse me, from our meeting of June 1st. Everybody get a chance to check out the minutes and read them. Okay, could I have a motion for approval?
I motion to approve the June 1st minutes.
Okay, could I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Sanders.
Aye.
Commissioner Waggy.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hobart.
Aye.
Commissioner Acey.
Aye.
And Chair Shanahan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Non-public hearing items, we have none. Public hearing items, consider recommendation for the City Council to draft a wireless telecommunications ordinance.
Thank you, Chair. We have a little PowerPoint put together, so. Yeah, this item is a discussion of a proposed telecommunications ordinance. I'm going to give a little background and we'll turn it over to Rafael to talk a little bit about the ordinance. We did receive one correspondence from Comcast regarding the ordinance that we just got today, so I'd like to talk a little bit about that after we give our presentation or at some point during our discussion about how we can address that. This has been before the Planning Subcommittee where we have had some interest by private companies wanting to put this type of facility in town. I wouldn't say they're beating down the door, but we've had some interest. And then we started looking into what we have, and our telecommunications ordinance is really from 1996, and Rafael will probably talk about that a little bit more. It doesn't handle this type of facility. So we started doing some research, working with Myers-Nave, and came up with an ordinance. There was a ruling, and the FCC did the Telecommunications Act in about 2017, and it was upheld at the Ninth Circuit Court. So we are limited in what we can do in terms of regulating this type of industry, but we have been in consultation with Myers-Nave, and one of the things that we can regulate is aesthetics. We can charge fees. We can do a few things, but ultimately we really can't deny them, and we're under the gun to get it approved under a certain time frame, which they call the shot clock. But we feel like in reviewing this ordinance, it's modeled after the city of Sonoma's, that this ordinance probably takes it as far as we comfortably can in regulating this industry. in terms of what we're asking of them, given the FCC Telecommunications Act and it's upheld at the Ninth Circuit. Maybe we can get the next slide. This was kind of what I gave to the city council, you folks may know what this is, but just to give you a little bit of background on what they are, and you've probably seen them in towns already. They're small antennas. They typically go on city-owned, in the right-of-way, on poles. They can go on buildings. You can see on the top, just that little picture. The big one is the traditional one that we've all, done use permits for, and those are all around town, but around the county. But we're really moving to these smaller ones. So we can go to the next slide. Here's some pictures. And you can see, some of these are terrible, like the top left corner where it's just, that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. And we feel like we do have some latitude as far as aesthetics go on how they look and where they're placed. So, the top right is a much better example, and then on the building you see these small antennas. But I think our goal here really is to get what we can in an ordinance, and you can see through the ordinance that there's a lot of pages, there's a lot of requirements. Some of this could be challenged at some point, but we feel like we're in a good space to defend this. Next slide. So just a little bit of what happened with that Ninth Circuit Court appealing ruling. So we can't deny the carrier through explicit prohibition, so we can't just say we don't want them. You can't do that. We can't deny it based on health concerns. I'm sure you guys have heard people are concerned about radio waves and other electronic waves that come out of these. And one of the requirements in the application submittal is an analysis of that by an engineer. So we do have that in there. We can't stall. I mentioned the shot clock. We have 60 days to approve it once it comes in. But I did read in the fine print of that, we do have the ability to say their application is incomplete. So if they just come in with, a very incomplete application, that clock doesn't start ticking. And that's the same as this Permit Streamlining Act for our other applications in the planning world. And we can't deny them from using the right of way. So with that, I think we'll go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Rafael, who's done a lot of heavy lifting on this ordinance. Take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. So, as Kevin said, this is they're introducing a new ordinance, not replacing our existing ordinance, but essentially creating a new one because, as Kevin mentioned, the old one essentially tackles a lot of what we've experienced up until now as far as technology-wise. From the old big satellite dishes, from the 80s and 90s to the current stuff with cell towers and such. So, again, this is a supplement to the city's existing chapter 15 or 5.37. The new chapter will be 5.40. Wireless telecommunications facilities will be the title of it. And again, it's created by the ruling order by the Federal Communications FCC effective January 14, 2019. Next slide, please. So some of the key components of the ordinance. The hierarchy, what kind of said, we're kind of locked into, we have to approve these things, but this is kind of where we can make some, discretionary decisions, and just essentially one of those is where in the city do we want them, where do we prefer them to go? And this is kind of what we've set up as our hierarchy. First of all, kind of in the commercial districts, except for the OR district, which is primarily a residential district, even though it's technically a commercial district in our ordinance. So that's less preferential in that zone of all other commercial districts. And then industrial, public institutional, or city-owned property. And then last would be residential zones. The city may retain consultants at the applicant's cost to review applications. Pole-mounted wireless facilities shall be at least 1,500 feet apart. One more thing about the ordinance, it does require a conditional use permit, so it would be reviewed by the Planning Commission there's an extensive amount of things that they have to submit with the application and do even before the meeting. The meeting does require, before the planning commission reviews it, before the planning commission reviews the conditional use permit application for one of these, there would even be a neighborhood meeting that the applicants would have to hold, and they, instead of our own 300-foot notice, they have to do a 500-foot notice to neighbors. That is something, it's in the parameters or in the regulations that the planning director could waive the need for the community meeting if it's kind of a timely thing or if it doesn't seem necessary. But it's, like I said, there's a lot of regulations in there for them to get this application, or to get the use permit. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here's the requirement for the use permit. Again, like I said, the planning commission will require, or planning commission's approval is required for small cell facilities on poles within the existing right-of-way, and also required for other wireless telecommunication facilities on private property, except for modifications, co-locations specified under federal law. And appeals can be made to the city council as any other decision by the planning commission. Next slide, please. Sums up the staff's report for this, and the staff's recommendation is that the planning commission recommend approval to the city council adoption of the wireless telecommunications facilities ordinance. Staff's here to answer any questions.
Yeah,
Should you have any?
I have a little bit more. So,
Yeah, again, about the.
So, just a summary is our ordinance, current ordinance was adopted in 1997. We didn't have any provisions for this type of thing. We are having some interest, and I don't want to repeat myself, but we do have some authority under the aesthetics. And given the amount of interest, it was really the recommendation of Myers-Nave and other cities that we've contacted to get an ordinance in place as soon as possible. I don't think it's a huge rush, but it's definitely something we want to start working on for when they come knocking on the door to start installing 5G. There is a resolution in the packet recommending approval to the city council. There was a question about fees, and after looking at that a little closer, Chair Shanahan, it is a use permit, so they would be required to pay the normal use permit fee, which is I think $2,300. So that would be the processing fee, since it's set up like a use permit. So that's it. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in the ordinance. I mean, I went through it again today, and it's probably 30 pages long. Oh yeah. And then we can go through any aspect of it that you have any interest in. And then the other thing was this Comcast letter that came in today. What I garner from this, and I didn't have a ton of time to really digest it, but they provide Wi-Fi service in towns already. You can see that if you have Comcast, it comes up on your phone. Their concern is those small antennas that they put up to provide that Wi-Fi would be subject to this ordinance, making it a lot more difficult for them. They are suggesting that we add another definition to the ordinance, and then at the same time exempting that type of facility from the ordinance. Now, we can do a couple things. We just got this a few hours ago, and I did have a chance to talk to the attorney, and really what his advice was is, we can talk about this. You can make a recommendation to not include this. You can make a recommendation to include it up to the city council, or if you want more information about this, we can have a discussion tonight, and if there's other questions that come up, we're happy to bring them back in September seeking a recommendation. My personal opinion about this is it seems to be okay. I don't want to go out too far here because I don't know exactly what it is, but my brief research of what they're asking is already in place in a lot of towns and even Cloverdale. So it's not a big intrusive facility or piece of equipment, and it's providing Wi-Fi versus the 5G. So we can talk more about that. There's a couple ways to go with it. So I guess that's our conclusion. To take questions.
Do you know where there's one of those to look at? One of their antennas?
I don't. I tried to find a picture of one. Maybe I can find one. I mean, I went on my phone and noticed an Xfinity signal. So I do believe they're in town. If you go to Healdsburg, that signal comes up everywhere. So, you know, they have a description in this definition. No larger than 24 inches in length, 15 inches in width, and 12 inches in height, an exterior antenna no more than 11 inches. So I'm happy to do more research. Again, this came in so late, or we can, you know, if the commission would like to make a recommendation, we could do more research and present that to the council as well.
I have a question on this also, having to do with the Comcast letter. So from what I read in the staff report and the draft resolution, as well as in the letter from Comcast, it doesn't specify cellular technology necessarily from Wi-Fi. Is that right? So if that's the case, then I don't see any reason why we can't modify this resolution, this draft resolution, to include the language that was suggested by the folks from Comcast. Because what they're doing is not cellular technology, right? It's just Wi-Fi for their existing customers. And that infrastructure, like you already said, exists here already. So, you know, if we move forward with this, it would be nice to see that language included in the resolution as well.
I think it has to do with they go on poles and put equipment up, and they don't want to be lumped into this larger ordinance.
Right.
Personally, I think it might be fine as well, Commissioner Sanders, but you know, before we go to council, I'm going to investigate this more.
And my question is, what are the differences in the size constraints? Because they listed out what their size were of their equipment, but it didn't appear to be that large.
No,
We're talking 24 inches by 11 by whatever, and then, and we're talking about having a standard of what would go on under the cellular side of being a certain parameter. Are they that much different, or can we just say that Wi-Fi or cellular needs to meet this type of limitation and screening? And I agree, I think we should probably separate the two.
The antennas for the 5G are bigger.
Okay.
There is a size in the ordinance that they can't exceed. I think it's 2 or 3 feet. So, you know, maybe we can go back to those pictures if that would be helpful, but they're also in the staff report.
Yeah, I saw the kind of the clustering ones that were on the pole.
Once you realize these that are out here, you'll start seeing them all over the place. It's
Yeah,
one of
right
those
across the
kind
street
of
from my
things.
house.
Well, like the bottom right corner, you know, that's sort of the antenna size. I mean, they're kind of like small Wi-Fi's almost, but it's cell service.
So the only conflicting thing with Comcast is that they're lumped together as cellular, and they just want to separate the branding types, the technology types.
That's, my reading of this is they just, they want to differentiate themselves from cellular, and they don't want to be subject to the ordinance. And continue to do what they're doing already, which is, you know, providing a Wi-Fi signal. One of the things that I found when researching this too is the accessory equipment, which isn't really shown here. Sometimes along with this antenna, they'll want to put a box on the sidewalk that can be kind of ugly. And the ordinance talks about camouflaging it, maybe getting it into a vault if possible, but it does address things like aesthetics, you know, making sure that the cables are run neatly or hidden completely, and that ADA requirements are still made after the, you know, that there's enough clearance on the sidewalk for ADA accessibility.
Well, that was part of what I was talking about in the fee schedules that Ukiah has for these boxes that are in the right of ways. That they do charge $200 a year for inspection by the city to look at those things and make sure that their weeds are whacked and no graffiti on them and things like that. So that's, part of what I was talking about in that fee schedule that we had to reach up and you kind of, so.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chair Shanahan. There's the fee for bringing the application in, and that attempts to cover our costs for the public hearing and all that. But there is a fee that is ongoing when it could be similar to like an encroachment permit that's issued annually or something like that. But in the FCC ruling, they're very clear about
Yeah, they put the
can't go
limits.
crazy with it.
Yeah, the limits are there, but
Yeah, they do recommend 200 a year, so that's probably,
that's what you kind of,
yeah. And that really doesn't cover much, but,
no, it covers the cost of a guy driving out there to look at it.
yeah, exactly.
So,
But by setting a fee, it sets a standard, and you can adjust the fee depending on whatever. If you don't have a fee, it's harder to establish a fee.
Right.
So you're better off establishing it now.
Do you know what the surrounding areas are charging?
I know just, like, as I said, as Kevin said, we kind of copied this off of such as Sonoma. Their use permit, it's just what their use permit fee is also, and theirs is substantially more than ours. Their standard use permit fee, I think they have a minor and a major, and these all fit into the major category, from what the director said, and theirs is something like $10,000.
So what about the towns around us, the cities
Yeah.
around us?
I haven't researched the rest of the town.
Yeah, there is guidance. I mean, it's a little vague, but it just says it really needs to reflect what your costs are, and you can't just say, oh, AT&T's coming, let's just do 10,000 a year or something. And it's protected in that FCC ruling, and they have guidance in this kind of summary of it, It says $200 a year is a suggested cost that a carrier probably would not challenge. Now, I mean, we could push the envelope, and we could certainly demonstrate that our staff time is worth and costs a lot more than that. And, and the reality is they may not challenge it if they just want to get in here, if it's small amounts of money, but, I probably, look, we do have an annual encroachment permit that we just recently did through the Public Works Department, so it could be something like that. I think it's a couple $100 a year. So, once we, get to an ordinance that we like, then we're gonna start talking about the fees, and that gets adopted by a resolution at the council.
So you'll talk fees at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last question on this fee subject. This is primarily on city land, correct?
Yeah.
So are we sub-metering, or are we paying the power bill to supply these devices annually? And is that $200 even covering the power cost? So,
No,
fill that out.
it's a good question. I don't know the exact answer, but my gut is telling me we're not paying their power bill. And they're pretty sophisticated in this, where they try to locate these, and, they may work that out with PG&E.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'd be hard to get a meter.
I would look into that as
Yeah.
you're coordinating the fee, because if that is on our bill, then I don't think $200 is paying the power bill.
well, the one I was involved in that is, they have a standalone meter.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping they sub-meter.
Yeah, I can kind of chime in on that a little bit. As for the existing infrastructure that some of the wireless companies have here on city property, in particular, I'm talking about the water tanks that are up on the hill behind the high school. There are antennas there, and they do have separate metering.
Okay.
So the precedence is that they have their own meter. So I see no reason why they couldn't continue that, all through the 5G upgrades.
Maybe that goes in the ordinance to assure that they have their own separate meter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To make sure they aren't
We could
ever
do
caught,
that.
because I can see taking advantage of a small town that doesn't quite catch that.
Exactly.
Well, we'll put this on the city building, but by the way, you're paying the power bill.
The one thing that Rafael mentioned is, if we get in over our head, we can hire a consultant and bill that to the applicant. It says it right in there, so that would be something, these are very specialized things, so we do our best, but we may not know all the ins and outs.
I have a question on the radio frequency compliance report. Can you talk a little bit about that? I noticed how it has like, is it individually or cumulative? How does that work? Because I know every 5 years they do a report, but can you talk a little bit about that?
My reading of that is it would, I think we have leeway in what we can ask for, the way it's written. But I would want that if there was any residential uses within a certain distance of these, I mean, I think we probably would require it for each individual one, but I'm sure they could combine it into one report. I mean, the ironic thing is, we can't really use a health and safety finding to deny this.
Right.
But it would, I mean, maybe it's, designed for folks who live around there to give them some comfort, but
And it also says that to require the acoustical analysis, so yeah, if it's, in a
Noisy.
yeah, in an area that maybe is sensitive, we can require that, knowing that it'll cover those, all those things that people might be worried about, including sound.
yeah, and my guess, just like doing the larger cell towers over the years, is that either the company, like AT&T will hire a sub to get these approved. They know all of these things, and they typically will submit those, as the initial application. But we do have the ability to ask for lots of things through this ordinance. Some of it may not be applicable in every case, but it's in there, so gives us a little bit of leverage. But to answer your question, my envision of that report would be maybe like a site plan where each one is going, and maybe, a circle around that with the distance, and then some sort of analysis of what type of noise and, what do they call it, the waves,
Exposure.
Radio frequency.
radio waves, coming off of that.
Radio frequency emissions.
And you know that this, 5G isn't the end of the line. It's going to go greater and greater and greater. And is the equipment going to get smaller or bigger? Technology could make it even smaller. But you would want to build in any upgrades that they would want to do into the ordinance.
There is something about every 5 years, they have to, I don't know if it was submit a report or it's a mandatory upgrade, but there is language in there about every 5 years that they have to report out. What does it say?
Well, it says at all times, the permittee shall ensure the facility complies with the most current regulatory and operational standards, including but not limited to radio frequency emission standards adopted by the FCC and antenna height standards adopted by the FAA.
That's good.
Yeah, so it's a lot of this is kind of, it's on the applicant. Which, as staff, I think we kind of appreciate that, but it's heavily weighted on the applicant to do a lot of this.
As it should be.
Yeah, and the planning director has the call to enforce as much as he wants, as he's necessary.
The other question I have is on the insurance. I know that it's not listed on there. Do you have that as an attachment that you provide? Because I didn't see where commercial general liability or auto or workers' comp, is that separate? Did you keep that separate?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do have our standard insurance that we ask for from, first of all, like an encroachment permit, if you're working, I would think there'd be two layers to it. When you're actually installing it, and that's kind of the encroachment side through the Public Works Department to make sure if anything happens while they're working, and then the ongoing, in case something falls on somebody or, God forbid, something like that. So we're pretty good on our insurance. I'm not a risk manager, but I know that we require insurance for everything. But that is a good point, that we should, as part of this application packet, when this thing gets to that point, we should specify the insurance we're looking for. So we may have to talk to our insurance company to.
Yeah, keep in mind that they can start fires too, so.
There's liability policies that cover claims for radio frequency exposure. So that might be something to look into if they have that type of liability.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't even really thought of that. I was just kind of thinking of regular insurance, but there's a lot of cities that have this, so it's not going to be, we're not inventing anything here. So thanks for bringing that up.
I noticed that you have that tier where it's commercial and then it falls into residential. How does that work? So if I am one of the providers and the entities, this is your preferred, but how does that work? How does that work for you? Because I know that you have first tier and then all the way to residential. So how does that work?
Yeah. My understanding of that is they can argue that they can almost put them
Anyway,
anywhere.
right.
But it's more of our message to them to say, we understand, you know, we wouldn't say this, but we understand the rights you have through the FCC. This is our preference, you know, so maybe it's more leverage for us to work with them. I don't think it's enforceable, to be honest with you. I think it's more of us expressing our preferences to them in an attempt to work together. You know, I don't know that they would necessarily want to go right into a residential neighborhood and start putting these, but I don't know that for sure, but they could. And so this ordinance really, we think, does the most that we can do to try to steer these things where we want them and how they look. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they have great arguments against some of these components in here. But it doesn't hurt to have them in here, I don't think, and that's been our discussions with the attorney all along. This is one of the more complicated ones, and some of them are real simple, but we were interested in aesthetics because it seems like the one thing that they've kind of allowed cities to continue to regulate.
And just to add on to what Kevin was saying, you know, say their first choice is a residential, and you know, we obviously want to know why that was their first choice, and we have a hierarchy. It does say that you know, application that proposes a site with a lesser preferred district, like a residential one, shall demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence in a written record that under the facts and circumstances surrounding the application, citing at any more preferred location or preferred district would result in prohibiting or having the effect of prohibiting wireless telecommunication services and or unreasonable discrimination as to the applicant under either U.S. section blah, 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 or otherwise prohibited under federal law. So I think in there, you know, we could ask, it doesn't sound like it's, you know, say we can ask for these certain things, but saying that it shall provide, demonstrate clear and convincing evidence, you know, with like the cell, just, you know, this is obviously new to us, so we don't have a lot of experience to go back on, but just going off of what we're used to with the telecommunication facilities, you know, with cell towers, you know, they can give us maps showing, you know, they can put it here and this is what the ground will cover. I'm guessing they can do the same thing with this, and we would ask for something like that.
Right, put the burden of proof on
Yeah,
them.
yeah, show us why and
Exactly.
yeah.
I would love that, yes.
Their optimum coverage area, yeah.
Well, it's gotta be 400 foot, right?
Right?
5G. So. Do we have any other questions?
Actually, I have a comment,
Yes,
if I may.
please.
So, in a former life, I actually was a radio frequency technician. So I had worked on radio transmitters of all different frequencies, and I can say that as time goes on and technology increases and evolves, we're forced to use RF transmissions that are in higher and higher frequency ranges. And so part of that is when you increase the frequency of RF waves as they propagate through the atmosphere, the penetration through air or through solid objects like Bill here, for instance, decreases, right? And so as these antennas go up here, there, wherever they go, they're really, really high frequencies. And so as far as the public health is concerned, it's really pretty low. It's probably lower than the phone that we all carry in our pocket anyway. So as far as residential installations go, or installations in downtown Cloverdale, as long as they're aesthetically pleasing, I don't think that they pose any risk to the public health in any way. No more than the phone that we all have in our pocket. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I know that there are gonna be people that will watch this at home, live or on YouTube, and this question may come up during the council meeting. And so I just wanted to clear that before it happens, that these are really safe. And I investigated this on the World Health Organization website, and they have absolutely no problem with them. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay,
Thank
Yep.
you.
good comment.
So where are we with the Comcast letter? What do you guys think about that? Do we want to put that verbiage in to this, at this point,
Yeah.
as a recommendation?
I think there's a couple recommendations. I would support the resolution with about 5 recommendations. One, we should use their terminology to separate the Wi-Fi from the cell when it comes to the small facilities. 2, we should look at size restrictions to meet the needs of the Comcast size units. But I do think we need to set size restrictions at a safe distance, because then you don't have this ability to just blow out. We can always, make, approvals to something that would not fit within. We have the ability to go above and beyond, but I think they need to add sub-metered power. So make sure that they're required to sub-meter all power for this, and then the insurance requirements are sufficient, so review and evaluate the insurance requirements. And then I completely agree with you, but I deal with this on a daily basis at work with the city of Sebastopol and some of their citizens who are extremely sensitive to EMF waves, and they have banned everything from smart meters to everything else that I think are also very safe. So I think we should set an optimum coverage area in the residential area, with the ability that we can allow it if there's no problem from the neighbors and everything seems to be fine, we can permit a lesser distance. But I think we should at least set the standard out there to make it safe for the community. So if there's that person in the neighborhood, at least they know that we're trying to take care of them and keeping it a few feet from their home. But what is that, 100 feet, 150 feet from residential? I know they need it in residential.
Are we allowed to do that with the
Not really.
Supreme Court ruling?
But again, the burden of proof is going to be on them to show us
But
why.
for us to even have it in the ordinance.
Can you have it?
Well, we have in the ordinance at least a prioritization, and I think if we can stick to those guns somehow, make sure that that's kind of kept to it. I think that you're always trying to force them into a commercial zone first. We're a small community, so most of our commercial is going to be within range, I would assume.
That's a good point. And also, I want to bring something else up too, since we're talking about the placement of these antennas and the way that this is written, it says that they will not be installed less than 1,500 feet apart, right? So what's 1,500 feet? Like, say you
3
take
in the city.
this intersection over here on North Cloverdale Boulevard and 3rd Street, which is, let's be honest, kind of a residential intersection anyway, at least on 3 sides of it. 1,500 feet from that is pretty far,
Yeah.
right? So you might pull one there, you might pull one at the 2nd Street Park, and then again on the tanks behind the high school, and that might include that entire area.
Right.
Right, so,
Yeah, I think that's a very safe
Yeah,
distance, and I
1,500
think we have the
feet's a long
ability to
ways.
limit that less if
Yeah.
we wanted to approve something for some special reason, but
Yeah.
I think the limitations are very severe as they are in our small town.
yeah, I think so too.
I think in a big city, you're like, oh, 1,500 feet, I don't know if I can do this because of all the tall buildings or whatever you're trying to get rid
Yeah,
of, but
right.
we're not gonna deal with that here.
There is some language about the maximum size of the antenna, not to exceed 24 inches.
I think, if you look at Comcast, there says 24 inches as well, but,
We're going to have to research this.
yeah, I would just make sure we have a safe size that's, I wouldn't want to go bigger than 5 feet, so it needs to be smaller than that. But I think 3 feet is the limitation, we'll go to 3 feet. But
I wish they
keep
would
it
have
small.
sent this last week so we could have dug into it.
Yeah, done a little, but I'm just making these recommendations before you present it to the council. Find the most, I could define this recommendation to say, insurance, find the most appropriate assurance to cover our needs. Specifically, I'm concerned of fire, and the cause by fire. Then you find sub-meter power. I think that's an easy one to add on there. The optimum, or at least I would just get the legal advice on the optimum requirement for distance and zoning. And then size restrictions, you know, same as insurance, research what is the most appropriate
Well, you
for
have size
both.
restriction, but you also have quantity on the antennas. Because you could have 24-inch all you want, but you could have 15 of them popped up there
But doesn't it say one for every 1,500 feet
per company.
per company?
Yeah, it's not gonna be for, you know, somebody wants to get on a pole, you're gonna have AT&T put their power up, you're gonna Comcast throw theirs, you're gonna have some guy down the street who wants to site, line-to-line site for his business. You know, they could all do it.
But what does one average reach? Because I don't think we need to stack it all up if we don't, I mean, can we limit that to a certain number?
I think that's possible.
Well, Ukiah hit us with additional fees for additional antennas. So,
Well, I'm definitely gonna call up there.
yeah, so if we bounced, you know, from 3 antennas to 5 with additional money.
What point I'm trying to get at is, I don't want this to stop at us.
Right.
I think we should move this to the council, and I'm supportive of that. I just think we're doing a great job of adding some regulations that we needed to have,
Tighten it up.
but there could be a couple more we could do even more, take it a step further, just to make sure that we're protected from what should evolve, and they should get smaller, better, even less, more, you know, it should be getting better over
And when
time.
it goes before the council, it would be nice to have a photo of an existing one somewhere.
The Comcast?
Yeah, well, Comcast or these other outfits, AT&T or who else may be putting them up.
There's only maybe 4 brands in our city,
Yeah.
so I think we could probably get 4 examples of what their current is here, and just reach out to those different brands and say, what is your current equipment in our city?
There is some language about co-location. So that's, if somebody puts one up, I think that they're compelled to allow a competitor to use that same site.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know all the details, I mean, I know what co-location is, and it's in here, so that, what I understood is that, you know, the first company in is gonna pick the best sites and try to lock those down as soon as they can. But I don't know how that interacts with the co-location, if there's like not physical room to put another antenna on there, you know, that might be an issue, but.
Well, they have 3 different types of poles, a street light,
Yeah.
utility pole, and then a slim line. And a utility pole seems to where they're doing the stacking and bundling of them.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we can, if they have to put multiple brands on the same pole, geez, we definitely have to have a limitation of number.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's another question too. So if you have, like, say, for example, Verizon and AT&T that both want to put their antennas on the same pole, is that one facility or is that 2 facilities? Right? Because in the language that Comcast is saying over to us, it says their recommendation is a micro wireless facility means a wireless facility having dimensions of, you know, blah, blah, blah. So if you have more than one company has their antennas, is that considered to be one facility? Or would we consider that to be 2 facilities? And if we don't really know, then we should probably clarify that somewhere in the language. Because that'd be an easy way to clean that up. You don't want to have 50 different companies with all, you know, everybody has their own antennas on the same dang pole. Then
Yeah, it
we
kinda
can
conflicts the other
clarify
one,
that
right?
as one facility,
You
right?
have to allow other companies the same pole, but then at the same time, we're only saying 1 facility per 1,500 feet. So
Right.
you really can't be on the same pole at the same time.
Exactly.
There may be something in the definitions, I don't see a definition of facility, but that may be covered, let me write that one down. Just write definition of facility.
Is that something that would meet the courts?
That's a good question for Jose.
Honestly, I really don't know, I mean,
Well, I think that ties with what you're already wanting to work to do with what is determined as a Wi-Fi facility and what is determined as a cell facility.
definitely.
So then if you can describe both individually, that can change your size requirements and the quantity, and you can work with that by getting the most current model.
I would think that facility would be company specific, even if they're on the same pole. The AT&T unit would be their facility, and the Comcast unit would be their facility, and Sprint would have one too, or something like that.
But I support looking at Ukiah and Sonoma and other similar cities and seeing what they have as a definition. And running with that. I don't want to stop this, but I think you can add these couple, 5, 6 points. We'll have even better.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is, I mean, and some of the things that you mentioned would be covered in conditions of approval. You know, and we can spell it out here too, but it would be, you know, you're gonna provide your own power, you're gonna provide insurance.
Yeah.
And those are typical, you know, we'll get one of these in and route it to the departments. But we wrote them down and we'll research them, and, you know, if you're okay with, if the commission's okay with it, you know, we can include some amendments based on these. But we'll certainly present all of those to the city council, what your suggestions are, and, you know, if it's feasible, we'll probably have to check back with Myers Nave on some of them, because, you know, our goal on this was to get as much as we could, and their opinion is this is far, but I'm not saying we can't make these changes. I mean, they may not affect, you know, the FCC at all, so we'll check it out and make sure we document them and see how they fit in, and make sure that we can legally do them. I didn't hear anything that sounded like, you know, in my novice opinion about the FCC ruling that ran afoul of that.
Yeah. We're in good shape.
So do you want me to present a formal motion?
Well, we gotta do it in two, as a resolution and then the ordinance, right?
Pardon?
We have to do two, the resolution and then the ordinance? Or
We'll just do the resolution.
Just do the
The ordinance goes to
resolution.
the
yeah, do the
referendum.
resolution with the,
And Chair, before the motion,
yeah,
just to open for.
we do, yeah, we have public comment too.
Sure.
So before I do that, any other discussion up here? Okay, so we could open up to public comment to see if there is any.
And no hands are
And
raised
no
on
hands
Zoom,
are raised
Chair.
on Zoom? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So we'll close the public comment, bring it back to commission. Any finals before we ask for discussion?
I'm appreciative that we're doing this, so thank you for, because I think too often we forget these little regulations that we need to uphold to kind of make sure we're not taking advantage of. So thank you for bringing this to our attention and moving forward.
Somebody would like to make a recommendation to approve resolution 005-2021.
I make a recommendation to approve, I didn't see the number on the recommendation you're talking to adopt the resolution recommending the approval of the draft ordinance. Sorry. 005-2021 with the additional recommendations of separating definitions of small facilities for Wi-Fi from cellular, researching and bringing together the average size restrictions for each of those small facilities, assuring that small facilities are sub-metered for power from the city, and assuring that the current insurance requirements are accurate on the ordinance, and then also assuring that the prioritization is legally sound, that we were searching for commercial versus residential. Commercial first.
A second, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Acy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hobart,
Aye.
Commissioner Weggie,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
Aye.
and Chair Shanahan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
Oh,
Cheat sheets.
sorry.
Okay, so next we have the ordinance. And that's title list right now, which is XXX 2021. So would you like to make the motion for that?
Much. I don't think that's, I
That-
don't think you have to do that.
We don't have to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
the reso's,
Recommendation.
I think you're good there.
Okay, good. I just saw it said signature on it, I get nervous. Okay. So that concludes that part. We have other business, which we have none. We have planners report, but before we start that, Commissioner Ace, you wanted to give us a little brief fill?
Yeah, I don't know if all of you had a chance to get Irene's message for a webinar that was held last Friday. We have developed, or I should say, the organization Sonoma Clean Power, who I work for, has developed an advanced energy center in downtown Santa Rosa, and I urge you all to try to take a visit. I can set you up with a tour if you'd like. I can provide the tour if we want to do a Brown Act safe tour, also for the council. But this facility, what it was is in reaction to the 2017 fires, we've been studying in over 60 homes and businesses in our community, different technology types, to try to find out what's most efficient to put into our homes as we rebuild. And so we've come up with those technology types that we're going to demonstrate there and deploy there. And we're trying to get the cost down to zero for low-income customers. And we incentivize it, and the manufacturers are giving a really low rate for these really highly efficient technology types. So we're going to display all that out so you can touch and feel and experience them and get a good financial assistance on those as well, because we know that these efficient types are usually more expensive than the lesser fossil fuel types. They're trying to make it competitive. And also we're trying to connect you with the contractors who can install them. So if you know builders, we need to get them certified and up to date on the most current installation practices and get them listed so we can help the building community get more work. And we want to connect the community with builders. And for all of you who are doing any type of building around your homes, you know that we are really short on labor, we're really short on supplies. It's really a tough time right now. So hopefully this center gives us some of those solutions that we can start to rebuild together in the right way. So it's the Advanced Energy Center. It's on 4th Street. Used to be the old Stan Roy's Music Center. So, yeah. Feel free to stop by. That's my pitch.
Are you, Commissioner Hasty, is there any water saving?
Yes, actually, there's a whole water heater area that talks both about water savings and we talk about dish machines. There's this heat recovery dish machine there that only uses 15 quarts of water a day, which is really impressive. Also, out of the businesses, I don't know, I really didn't do this because I'm a public agency and I tried not to get our businesses, but we have about 4 or 5 Cloverdale businesses that are participating in the research project. And most are participating in this really new innovative insulation material. It's like the blue ice pack you have in your fridge. And it absorbs energy, so it coagulates as it cools and emits a heat, and as it heats, it melts and emits a cool. And so 4 businesses in our downtown area are actually having that as their insulation, and we're trying to test the energy savings they have on that as well. So it's kind of fun that Cloverdale has such a representation in the group.
Do you have to make an appointment to go to the center?
It's open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and you can. Our staff there gives you a tour, but if you'd like a special tour, and I can really dig into why, this is actually my project. I started this in 2018. I'm the director of the Advanced Energy Center, so I can give you a more detailed reason of how we're trying to make it a competitive market and really help the building community, and really some innovative, futuristic ways of helping out, especially low-income communities, and how to rebuild those. So we're working on some solutions there.
That's great. That's good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Good. Okay. Planners report.
Okay, well, it seems like a lifetime ago, but thanks for everyone who participated in the workshop. The joint council and commission workshop, I thought it was very informative. We kept Rafael and I keep talking about all these state laws and all this, and you can't do this and that, so I'm hoping that put a finer point on that to just drive home that, some of these things are, for lack of a better way of saying it, out of our control, and that's kind of the way it is. So, but I just thank everyone for participating in that, and I like the second part, which was the downtown zoning, and I thought it was pretty creative how they came up with a hypothetical project, and then just kind of said, well, if you want this to happen, here's some amendments you might want to consider. We did have a follow-up meeting with them, PlaceWorks consultants, and they're going to put together a list of proposed amendments, and that could happen in downtown and office residential zoning. And that'll come through here probably 1 or 2 times, maybe even before it goes on for a recommendation to council. So looking forward to seeing what they come up with. Our next meeting is September 7th. That's the day after Labor Day. So you'll have Monday off and then right back at it. It looks as if, and Rafael can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Dry Creek Rancheria project on the south end is getting real close, and they're getting real anxious. So we're trying to to help them move along. And that will be, we'll be seeking a recommendation on that because it's an annexation. There'll be a lot to digest and, please feel free if you ever want to have 2 meetings for any of these bigger items, it's not a problem for us. We can do that.
Are there any documents that they might have available that we can get in advance of the packet?
Yeah, with the weekend, that we have that
Just,
weekend.
yeah, just so we can get,
No, that's a good point. I think there's SQL, is there SQL doc up there? We'll
Yeah.
check and, the SQL document should be up there, which is, the analyzing the
Mhm.
environmental impacts. That's the one that needs such a long lead time, so we usually have that one well in advance, and that goes to the state and other places, so. But we'll do our best to get things to you as soon as possible. But that one may be available right now. We'll double check and make sure.
Yeah, I'll put as much as we have on the website for public consumption.
yeah, I know that they don't like to release all of their development plans in advance, but if they have stuff that you're assured is gonna go in the packet,
Yeah.
love to see it.
Well, I mean, the SQL document is a lot of it. I mean, there's a project description, so you're
Mhm.
gonna understand what they're trying to do. There's not the level of detailed drawings that you'll get
Yeah, the
later, but
renderings, but-
it gives you an idea. So we'll make sure we get that to you. Probably the other big one is that affordable housing project on Austie Road, which is just south of Crocker. Do you guys know where I'm talking about? The
Yep.
triangle. They've submitted an application. It's gone through for comments from departments. There's some substantial comments that they're trying to work through. So I suspect it'll be before the planning commission in the next few months. So those are the 2 big ones. Is there something else I'm forgetting?
Just new applications submitted. We have a gas station wants to expand. I'm not sure if it's Sinclair essentially wants to expand. It's going to be a new one. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a new one, but the lot right behind Sinclair at the end of Santana. Another commercial truck, kind of like Renner, I guess, card lock facility. So I'm sure the police will be happy about that and that lot getting developed and
That'll enhance that intersection.
Are they gonna add another light?
another light.
As long as we add a light to it, I'm fine.
On behalf of the city manager, I'd like to give just an update on the light, because he's been stressing out about that and going out there and timing it himself.
I almost was late today just because.
Come on. It's not functioning properly right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's clear to everyone. They've identified a problem and they're working to solve it quickly. So hopefully people can be patient. I understand, we've heard a lot of earfuls about it, and I know David, like I said, he's been down there 3 or 4 times, taking counts and meeting the traffic engineer, so there's a fix in the works that we're hoping will be done this week.
Okay.
So hopefully, it's not functioning correctly, and there's a lot more to these lights than I ever would have guessed. I'm not a traffic engineer, but there's a computer in there, and they can change things and do all.
Yeah, I
kinds
think
of
when you're less than 1,000 feet or something like that, you're supposed to have some synchronization in it, and there's obviously no synchronization.
Yeah, that's exactly what's
what-
happening. It's not synchronized, so. I wasn't gonna talk about that, but since it was brought up, I just thought I'd give you guys an update on that. Also, I know you know, but we do have our planning and sustainability subcommittee meetings, every other month? It's every other month. And that's a great opportunity if you guys would like to get down into the nitty-gritty of some of these planning items. We're having one on Tuesday the 17th at 4, and we do provide it on Zoom. Bob, I think you've attended a few.
Oh, yeah.
So just throwing it out there if you want to help steer kind of some of the grassroots, like this ordinance, that's kind of where this started. And the whole reason this started was because a tire kicker came to town and said, what about us putting 5G in there? And then we kind of said, well, we don't have anything for 5G, and then we immediately.
Can we request that we get that subcommittee put on our calendars and then we just
Yeah.
accept or deny as we're available?
Yeah.
I just would like to get it on my calendar, and I'm not taking the time, honestly, to go through the website to find out what
Yeah,
the
you could
calendar
just-
is, so.
If you were at work,
Apologize.
you could just listen, just maybe have it in the background if
Yeah,
you're working at the time. But that one's is at 4. So we'll make an effort to get it on your calendar. I don't know if you guys know, but Irene is leaving us and she's our big organizer. So
I know.
we're gonna have to step it up on our
Darn.
organizational skills.
We just got you trained.
She just trained us.
I have another question. On the workshops, I know like the Austie project, they had a workshop. Can you notify us when they have a workshop like that? So it's not for us to, well, I wasn't going to make a comment, but I like to listen to what the public has to say
Yeah.
and hear about the
No,
project.
I apologize. I didn't get that out as good as I should have. I mean, that was on them to do that, but I should have. And just so as a commission, you're absolutely right, Commissioner Holberts. You probably shouldn't comment on a project in a
Right.
workshop like that, because they could come back and say, well, this person is already tainted, and we heard their opinion, so we're asking that they not be part of the decision. So, that, I'm not saying that would happen, but that's a possibility. But, I was on vacation that week, but I did try to get the word out as best I could, and I feel like I kind of dropped the ball a little bit, but we'll work on that.
One thing I'd like to compliment the city staff is that Cloverdale Newsletter that has been coming out. It is really useful to see what the meetings are coming up and, the links. Since we don't have a newspaper anymore.
Yeah, so anyone who's not, you go on cloverdale.net and it says notify me. You just put your email in there, and every week, staff, there's a decent amount of effort that goes into that, so it's nice to hear that people are reading it.
See, I look for Irene, so now we have to figure this one out, because I've got that one down.
It'll just be an email that's, I think it says newsletter or something available. I don't know what it says, but.
There's an icon if you just visit our main page. It says, it's a newspaper icon and it says sign up here. You just follow that link.
And then you can sort of sign up for
Exactly.
All of the
notifications of
Yeah.
different committees and things like that.
You can sign up for everything.
Yeah, it's quite extensive.
Get a dedicated email just for all the notifications.
That concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
As far as Taylor Lynn 2, I think that's the second one, is it impacted by any water moratorium hookup kind of thing?
Well, right now, there's going to be a big discussion at the next council meeting about water. And we spent a lot of time on it. That mandate came down, which is basically requiring the city to up their tier for conservation. We're not exactly sure if it's going to be level 4 or level 5. We're thinking it's 4, but it's really, there's a lot of moving parts. Long story short, that's occurring. But right now, if they can get a building permit, they can get it all done and built, but then they have to come back to us and ask for a water connection. And the new ordinance that's going to be introduced on Wednesday sets forth a path for that to happen. And there's things like they don't install the landscaping now. And there's a number of measures that they would have to achieve in order to get the water hookup. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And one of them is a fee. And the fee would be dedicated to water conservation efforts in town. But if you're interested, I recommend you tune in. This water situation it's really bad. Hear about it all day, and it's very, very depressing. So.
And the other question I had was, what's going on with Baumgartner, if anything?
Baumgartner is, they still need to do what we call the final map. Maybe you're familiar with that. They have a tentative subdivision map. They still have to do the final map, and I'm in touch with him quite a bit. One of the items on this subcommittee is going to be, I don't know if you followed what happened after it left the planning commission about the park, that he's dedicating a park. He's submitted to us a drawing of what he would like to do at that park. And it's only been really reviewed internally by staff, but we're going to have it on this committee. There's a dog park, there's parking, there's a play lot, and there's like a picnic bench area. But he seems open to any suggestions, but this is kind of what he threw out there as a lead, and I think there'll be some opportunities.
Is this on the school district land, or is this that part of that 9?
It's part of the, where he eliminated
The
the
9 acre parcel.
lots. So it's, I think it's a pretty good effort, to tell you the truth, but, it's gonna be reviewed here, and then I'll have to speak with David about how we wanna, if that'll get brought to the council along with the final map, or how we get input on that. But
Are they still, and are the school districts still able to coordinate and do a park over there as well? Because I understand that the school district was offering that up to the city for the developer to use, and I
Yeah.
remember the developer said he'd do it, but we need to get some CEQA and other stuff moving on that.
Probably the biggest update there was
COVID would have helped.
the school did do a CEQA document.
Oh, good. That is good.
It's good. We presented comments. So I think they listened to what the developer was saying.
Well, they put out a letter today saying that they're just, if the city wants to put the dog park there, and he wants to put the
Yeah, I
dog
saw
park
that.
there, everything's good, they're gonna put the dog park there.
Right.
But the school's not putting money out for it.
Yeah, I didn't
So,
expect them to.
yeah,
The developer
so
said he
it's
would do
all-
it too, so that was nice.
Yeah.
The
So the
developer stance is that if the timing works, when he's got his equipment out there,
They gotta be ready.
Yeah, they gotta be ready. And there's more to just CEQA, but that is a huge first step, and so it kind of came as a surprise to us that
Yeah, I'm shocked.
they had done that, and we just got a notice that it was done since we have property near there.
And one other just sort of comment, given the issues with the street, I don't know, stoplights down there at the south end of Cloverdale Boulevard, I'm just seriously concerned that if that place is actually built out, and you're gonna have that much more traffic running through that South Cloverdale,
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
in and off, it's just gonna be a mess. And they're gonna go down to Dutcher Creek, and that's gonna be a mess. So I really think there should be some very serious traffic studies done of the impact. I know it was sort of talked about a little bit, but I don't think we really got into it yet. But I think that end of town, I lived in a little town in Santa Cruz County where there was a whole lot of people that had to get on the freeway at like 7:45, 7:15. It was a nightmare, and there were lights, and Caltrans was involved, and the city of Capitola were involved, and these lights didn't synchronize because some of the lights were Caltrans lights and some of them were city lights, and somehow they couldn't work out. It was serious.
I think they just missed it by a street. They should have moved the light down to the exit street.
But then you got
But then you're talking Caltrans, that's there.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Still.
That's what, it's a complicated.
It is, and I mean,
responsibilities, and
there's
putting
a
that
lot,
many
there's a lot
cars
of
in traffic is gonna be,
there's a lot of traffic engineers. I just urge patience on the light because it's not where it's ultimately gonna be, and we're just hoping that they can make it work better and it'll be free-flowing traffic or a much better situation.
the concern I have is south of
Beyond
that
that.
light.
All right.
Okay.
I have one question to ask. I don't know if it's something that you can really speak to or not, but I just wonder, is there any update that you can provide regarding the consolidation of some of the smaller water systems in town, or around town, I should say?
Probably the best update I could give you, Commissioner Sanders, is I was involved with the 6 Acres meeting recently. That decision was deliberated at the council for a long time, and ultimately we agreed to take them in. At this point, they're in the process of hiring a project manager, hopefully an engineer or someone like that, to help them get through this process of getting grants. The one thing that we requested, and I think they're following up on, is wastewater as well. So since it's considered disadvantaged community, the state will provide funding for a project manager. And so they're trying to get GHD to do that. And part of that, the other side of that coin is they're seeking funding for wastewater. South Cloverdale is also going through the same process as 6 acres. And hopefully it doesn't take, 8 years or whatever 6 acres took. I mean, we kind of have a template now, but there was some discussion of South Acres. I don't know where they are at this point though, but I believe they're getting the same grant as 6 acres.
Okay.
So those are impacts to our water system.
Absolutely.
For
Those
sure.
two, there hasn't been any talk of, what's the other one, Rains Creek,
Yeah.
So,
or, there's a couple out on the other end of town too.
Yeah, what's the one,
Prairie
there's the one
Road.
up north too?
Yeah, the north end of town, then also out on the other side of the river, there's a couple out there too.
Yeah, the only two that are really doing anything is 6 acres and South, that I know of,
Okay.
that I've been involved with. Yeah.
Cool, great, thanks.
We have any other direction to staff? Okay, thank you. With that, I can adjourn this meeting to our next meeting Tuesday, September 7th,
all right.
6:30 p.m.
National Night Out.
That's right.
Is that what time it is?